Welcome to the Speak Pact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Roze, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the Speak Pact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Roze.
Welcome back to Speak Pact. We are going to have a bunch of fun today, diving deep with Tillis Lederman. You may know her name. She is an author. She is a renowned speaker, and she's really gotten her voice out there in some powerful ways. She helps connect leaders and cultures. She is a relationship-driven coach for success, a likeability and communications author. I really want to dive into that. Of course, as speakers, we should be good with communications and hopefully even with likability. So we're going to talk a bit about that. She's a TEDx coach. You just have so much accolades right behind your journey. And that's what I want to dive into. What is the subject matter that you already knew that you excelled in, spent some of your professional journey in? What clicked that took you from that to expanding your topics and really getting your voice out there and building the massive following that you've built?
Well, the truth is, I started my career in finance.
Finance, yeah, that's sexy.
Yeah, I'm a CPA by trade. Like, if I turn my camera around, you'll see my CPA in 2 states on the wall. So I was managing people at the age of 22 and making a ton of mistakes and really starting to want to protect others almost from making the mistakes that I made. And as I evolved in my career, I just kept seeing a lot of challenges around communications and management, not even leadership. Like, I was too low down on the totem pole to see the leaders, to even know that they weren't doing it right. But I knew where I was not working. And that's kind of how I started to build. And while working on a trading floor, I went to the CEO of the Tokyo branch, who was my boss, and said, "Hey, I want to do all this stuff." And he said, "Okay, but you still have to do all of that stuff." And I said, "Okay." And so, really where I think it comes from for all of you speakers and, evolving speakers, growing speakers, is the confidence to know that there's something you have to say and knowing who needs to hear it. And the confidence to say, I could do that.
Well, that is key. You can know you have something to say, but do you know who needs to hear it? And I know that there's some great books from some amazing authors out there. Know Your Why. They really focus on the why. But I don't think the why is relevant until you understand the who, right? Once you understand the who, the why comes easy. I want to help these people because of the why, right? That's where the why comes in. That's just my philosophy. Why is important.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I have a model called the I am going to, right? And so the why being the intent to some extent. I stands for intent. A is for the audience and M is for the message. And so kind of triangulating those 3 elements to, I am going to enable you to communicate, to connect, to build connected cultures, to build, connected leaders, right? That's my intent. And this audience today is, needs this type of message. And this is a corporate environment. This is a government environment. This is emerging leaders versus this is C-suite. So you then massage that message, that intent, that passion, that why, right, around the who in that moment, because your who might be pretty big. I know they say riches in the niches, and all you speakers are like, have a really tight little niche. And I just don't do that. Maybe just because I love lots of different audiences and my content is pretty universal and evergreen. So I am always thinking about who's in front of me right now, and who does this matter for? And that's when I massage the message.
Ooh, so good. And I get what you're saying about niches versus more universality. Is that a word? But I think at the end of the day, you are known for your ability to communicate, your ability to help people relate, right? And so so that likability piece, right? You're not likable if you're not relatable. So to me, it's all inclusive, and there's that relationship piece that you are so strong on. So you're known for a core, but you are also really masterful, which I think attributes a lot to your success at being able to communicate that in a way that relates to that who, right, that's out there. So it might feel like you've got a lot of different talks and a lot of different topics, but really it is centered. And I think that is essential. You do have to be known for something and be the one that
I was going to say that I think that's a really great point. And I think you're right. Although you go to my website and you'll see, here are 6 different talks you can choose from or customize your own. The truth is that every single talk has that thread, that foundation of connection, right? It is about being relationship driven in, building your brand and building your network and building your team and becoming a leader. Whatever it is, I'm always going to come at it from that angle of communicating to connect and building those key relationships. So you are absolutely spot on.
We love that. Communicate to connect and build. Yes. Okay. So you're behind your calculator and you are a CPA and you start getting some ideas. You meet with your Tokyo lead and he's saying, yeah, you can do that, but you got to do this too. Like, what were some of your first steps actually outside of maybe the umbrella of the corporation that you're working for to getting people to notice you and start getting your voice out there? What are some of the things that you did?
So one of the things, and I would say they blended over both the internal and the external because it was simultaneous to some extent. While I was internal to this bank and saying, hey, I want to do corporate training and all of that stuff, they would then send me to take a class in it. So the American Management Association was where they sent me. And I then went to them and said, hey, I'm a communications trainer. I want to train for you. And they looked at my resume and said, no, you're finance. And I said, fine. Hey, I'm a finance trainer. I want to train for you. And they said, sure. And so it was basically, building my strength as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a speaker, as somebody in front of a room in a smaller setting, right? Because speakers can be trainers, right? We're still speaking through, the spoken word of getting edutainment, across to our audience, whether it's 25 people or, 2,500. And so I started in that smaller environment. And then I got on the faculty of Rutgers Executive Education, and then I got on the faculty of Lehigh Executive Education, and then I, had clients, and so it was a slow roll in a way, but for the audience out there that thinks speaker and thinks keynote stages, right? That's to me the next phase in the evolution. And I will say that the biggest thing that got me from the small stage to the big stage was the first book.
That's a biggie, isn't it? I think that people write books thinking that they're going to get rich from the book, maybe, but not from the sale of the book, right? From the doors that it opens for you and the opportunities that it opens up. And sure, any other engagements, it's great to also have the book sales. I love one of the things that you do is you never really, correct me if I'm wrong, but you never really sell one book. With one book, you allow that purchaser to give the gift of the book to somebody else, and you actually ship it to them with a pink bow. I think that that's a lot of fun.
Yes, I love my version of a BOGO is buy one, gift one. And I love for me, I'm all about relationships. So I have them fill out a form when they purchase the 2-book option. of how do you want it made out to either yourself and to someone else. And I will personally write the note that they put with a little note from myself, put a little bookmark in it, put both books in a pink little bubble wrap envelope and ship it off so that they can personally hand that gift to the person that they're giving it
Oh,
to.
nice. Okay.
So
You
yes.
know what's beautiful about that? First of all, giving gifts is always beautiful. But you understand the
Bumpy mail. People open bumpy mail.
yes, it's so true. Lumpy mail, bumpy mail. You understand the value of a book, right? It's not that book sale itself. It's the greatest branding piece that there is. And it's not fleeting. You know, books hang around. And when you're done with it, you generally will pass it on to somebody else. Right. It's sticky. It's that's Michelle Tillis Lederman, right? She's sticking around. Much better than a
I
box of
love all the
chocolates.
words you're using. I love the sticky. I love all of those words that you're using. And I think you are spot on when you say that the value of the book is not the book sale necessarily.
Yes.
And, you know, when people, and I've done a lot of, you know, conversations with people who want to write a book, and I even have a webinar, and I'm happy to share the link with you if you want, of 4 different ways to publish a book. And I've done all 4, you know, because it is a great platform builder for all the speakers out there, to have that calling card, to have that credibility, to have that author title. But what it also does for you is not, you know, yes, I made money off my books, right? No, I'm not getting rich off of them, but yes, I get my royalty checks and that's lovely. But it becomes part of the package. And so when I'm invited to speak, I'll say, well, I include X number of books. And if you would like to purchase more, and I would say, and I also include a book signing, or I'll work with your sponsor to do a custom bookmark. And they can sit at the book signing table with me and have a captive audience while there's a line. And so I do all these things to enhance the interaction that the client has with me, and not just give them a speech, not just give them a keynote, but give them an experience.
Ooh, that you have really leveraging it in such intelligent ways. So you're not just sitting in the back of the room hoping people will come buy your book and sign it. You're actually making it part of the experience. I've never heard of sort of co-creating a bookmark that's personalized to you and the sponsor. I think that's a lot of fun. Making it part of you. Ooh, there it is. So for those of you who are on visual, she's on audio only. She's showing us one of her bookmarks.
And what you can do is you have the front, and then you enable them to customize the back or put their logo on it or put a message to their employees. You know, and it's just a really nice and very inexpensive thing that you can do with a sponsor of the conference that you're speaking at, that gives them a little extra something. And it also gives the conference planner a new thing to sell.
Ooh, so good. Yeah, and those conferences, even because I was a producer for quite a while, and thousands of people would come, and it would be the assumption that I'm just raking in the dough, but they are very, very expensive to put on. They usually take about a year to organize. So there could be thousands of people there and 175 vendors, and it's interesting that organizer is generally making their take home on those kinds of things, those little extra pieces that are happening. So if you come with another revenue generator, then I don't know, you might just get a bump up on the list of speaker options because you're coming as a package. And you've obviously got it dialed in, which tells me, even if the financial piece doesn't worry me so much, it's telling me you've been doing this. So you've got it dialed in. You're not just figuring it out. You've been doing this for a while. All right. So talk a bit about likability and connection, not only as it relates to leadership, because that's an area that you focus on. How has that helped your speaking career, really understanding some of the deeper nuances of that?
I mean, I think it makes a difference in anyone's career, in whatever they're pursuing. That likability piece of making people want to work with you. And that's what likability is to me. Everybody is innately likable, but what we're trying to figure out is what this person might like about me in this relationship and what I might like about this person across from me. And so I think of it as like the dance of figuring out where our connections are. We got on and we're like, ooh, curly girls unite. Finding those little things that we could talk hair product for, like, I'm sure 30 minutes. And, we could do a whole podcast just on hair products for curly girls. And somebody else, I will relate on something else, right? Like, I know there's a sleeping cat sitting behind Antoniette. There she is, right? And I'm an animal lover, so we could go down that path. It is kind of finding those things that we connect on, because people don't connect on what you do for a living, right? That's nice. Yay, we're both lawyers. What kind of law do you right? That's fine.
Yes.
But
So
what we really,
personal pieces.
it's not what we do, it's what we like to do. It's our common causes, values, experiences, dreams, people, places. All of those things are the things that make us connect. And people choose who they want to work with over what the product is, over what the content is. It is the person and the experience of that person that they're really buying. And that's why likability matters.
There's a lot of gold there. And I really like what you said about, it's not about what you do. It's about what you like to do, because that shows, right? We can try to BS people, but I think they can feel it. I know you were kind of utilizing that in a different way, but I see a lot, if we can grasp that, a lot of different ways that you can go with that. So you could get up on stages and basically be talking about numbers and CPA things, right? And you're good at it because you wouldn't have been working for banks and been in that field if you weren't. But does that light your fire? Because what lights your fire is going to permeate out into the audience, and they're going to get excited right along with you.
Oh my God, everyone listening, just press rewind and listen to what she just said, because yes, that is everything. Energy is contagious. It's chapter 4 of the likability book. If you don't have that heart, that passion, that belief, that for whatever it is you're talking about, don't talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it all the time, if you don't believe it with your heart and soul and it's the core of your being, don't talk about it. There is lots of technical fun issues happening these days while this is being recorded. We have forest fires out here in New Jersey. But we were talking about the energy that people bring about the topic of their choice, right? So
early in my career, I had owned a bed and breakfast for years. I married to a man, and we had paint contracting company. We've been married for 20 years, but he had it 20 years before then. So an established paint contracting company. And when I was shifting from being a producer to an agent, I knew I wanted to specialize in certain speakers. And so I was thinking about the different things that I've done in my life. And I could easily specialize in trade services speakers, right? People who want to maybe build their brand through getting out there and speaking, or actually want to keynote based on, and I've had a paint contractor who is also a speaker on change management, which was fabulous. But that didn't light my fire. And I knew that wasn't going to live on. Like if you start doing something just because you can, maybe, you want to build a solid revenue stream, you're going to eventually resent it. You want to build the castle you actually want to live in, not today, not next year, 10 years from now.
Yeah. And it's okay to pay your dues, right? As I said, I taught finance for the American Management Association to prove the skill I had before they let me actually teach communications courses. And so one of the things that I teach a lot in my leadership programs is skill does not equal preference. And as leaders, when we are trying to be a connected leader, right, which is like my signature talk, my signature course, my signature everything is being a connected leader, we need to think about what engages our people, what lights them up, right? And so sometimes what we do as leaders is we think, oh, they're good at this, I'm going to give them more of it. Well, I'm really good with numbers. I'm apparently highly analytical, which I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, what am I doing that's so analytical? constantly got feedback on how analytical I am. But I felt empty when I was in finance. And so I want you to think as a leader, not just to say, hey, they're good at this, let me give them more, but ask them, what do you love doing? What's the thing that you'd like to do? I was a terrible public speaker when I started out. I was afraid to be in front of a room. That was like my biggest fear. Never in a million years would I have dreamed that this would be my career, because that was not an interest of mine. Skills can be built if there's a passion behind them. And so if you think about the people on your team, learn their passion, learn what lights them up, because you have no idea what they can bring to the table unless you ask.
Okay, there's some really good, I would like to go deeper a little bit with a couple of the things that you said, because they're so foundational if you really are going to make it in the highly competitive speaking world, right? And it's competitive for a reason. Not everybody is willing to do what it takes to reach the level that you've reached as a speaker. I haven't even asked you, like I love that you had a journey, right? At first, your revenue model included probably keeping your day job and speaking on topics that weren't where you wanted to be ultimately, but it was that means to an end. It's kind of the stair step process, and you somehow understood that early on the journey, and it's paid off. So a couple of things that you said with regards to the confidence piece, as you got more clear on who Michelle Tillis Lederman is, what she enjoys speaking about, and what seems to be resonating, what are people leaning into, what are they enjoying in your delivery, you got more clear. And I'm sure with that came confidence. You just built that confidence muscle. And it's really difficult to have confidence when you don't have clarity. It's really difficult to have clarity when you don't just get out there and start doing it. Every time you talk, you're collecting data. So I love that you brought that to the table. It's foundational, but it's usually skipped over.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. If you're just starting out, a lot of people talk about how to go from, free to fee. And I think I've been in this business 20 years, and I will still do pro bono opportunities for a few reasons, right? But I have a criteria around it, right? I won't travel for pro bono, they have to have a certain size audience, things like that. But if it is a cause I care about, then you know what? My message is so important to me that if I can serve people who are serving, I could do that, mm-hmm. Right? Or if it's like an opportunity, I don't do a lot of things for exposure. Like they say, you can die from exposure. But, there are certain organizations that are all my target audience, and I appreciate what they're doing, like a SHRM or something like that. And so I'll do some of their events. So it isn't like evil to do something pro bono, but what I want you to think about is, what assets am I building as a part of this process? Am I building my confidence? Am I trying out a new talk? Am I asking for a recommendation from the conference planner, so that I can put something on my website? Am I asking for them to do photography and provide me all the professional images? Are they allowing me to videotape if they don't have a videographer? Am I getting video assets? So there's a lot of ways in which you can be, and I'm putting my air quotes here, paid for a talk without being paid for a talk. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to think about each as an opportunity. And let me tell you, when I was invited to go to my alma mater and do a talk for the Lehigh Women in Business. And it was, a topic that I'm like, this is not my area of expertise, and I'd love to say yes to you, but, I don't really see how what I talk about relates to this digital world thing. I'm like, I'm not a technology person. And so we chatted a little bit, and I was trying to give her some guidance and advice and who else she could call. And then I said, well, you know what? I guess I could talk about intentional connection in a digital world. And they're like, yes. And I was like, okay, now I'm building a brand new talk pro bono, but it's for my alma mater. So, okay. They would have a professional photographer there and all this stuff and a videographer. And so I got all those assets, but I also got a brand new talk out of it. that became one of my most sought after talks. Procter & Gamble had it second.
Wow.
And then Wellington Bank. And like, now I had this brand new talk. And so, these opportunities, think about what is it giving you in your growth on this path?
Another key set of values that are so important for a speaker who wants to be a speaker for the long run and make it a major part of their revenue. And you're so we're singing the same song with regards to this. There are different types of currency, and you've got to weigh that out for every speaking engagement. Let's say you're a $15,000 speaker and the budget is $5,000, but it's going to put you in front of the right faces, and you can sell your book, and and there's some other things. Maybe you are developing a new talk, or you need to update so your speaker assets, and it's going to be a big crowd, so you can get some of that video, whatever it might be. Yes.
Like a
Look at
video.
currency as a package. Yes, that keynote check is important and amazing. There's so many other pieces and it's going to be different for you, Michelle, than it is for me. Your currency is going to be different than my currency.
Absolutely. And I wanted to come back to something else you said, which is different revenue streams. I'm part of the National Speakers Association. I'm a CSP, which is, I think, the top 3% of speakers or something like that. And I'm in the room with these people, and I will tell you, 90% of them do not make the minority of their revenue speaking. Right? It is just one of their revenue streams. I mean, there's some that are in the $1 Million Speaker Group and it's solely keynotes. But it is the exception and not the rule. And so, I still have multiple revenue streams, and I want you to kind of think, yeah, okay, so book sales, that's going to be a little tiny sliver. Doing some web-based programs, maybe another little sliver. Then you've got training, which, let me tell you, as a speaker, selling training programs is a volume play. It is, more quantity of training than there is of speaking. And then you get embedded in an organization. I was embedded in an organization for 2 years doing coaching and training. Coaching is another revenue stream. Online programs. I literally we're not even a year old, but we launched the Connected Leader Club and the Connected Leader course. And it's an online semi-synchronous program. We actually just finished a cohort this morning. And so you have all these different ways in which you are getting your message, your heart, your fire, your light out into the world. And all of those ways are potential revenue streams.
Ooh, so good. I sure hope this audience is taking notes, because that is what makes or breaks the average speaker. Because world life ebbs and flows. Sometimes those keynote checks, you're just going to be getting those high value keynote checks, one after the other. And all of a sudden it dries up and you don't know what happened, but for that sustainability and that maximum opportunity, if you have those different pillars of income, you're never going to hurt, because one will always make up for the other. I love that you brought that into the picture. I spoke at an event last summer where I had expected a very large audience and was misled a bit by the organizer. Didn't wind up having a very large audience, and the hurt for that is I had to travel on my own dime and it was unpaid. But it wound up being a $33,000 engagement for me, because I understood those other pieces. And I love embedding yourself in an organization. Nothing wrong with that. Make it worth their while, so that you can, first of all, the relationships that can come out of that is amazing. I have one speaker that's been with Kubota for a lot of years. Of course, he speaks other places, but that is something is going to be there. And it's just so much goodness there. I love that you said that. We're going to, by this time in the show, people want to know, how do they find you? How can they connect with you? What's your book and where is it? All the good things. So why don't you just kind of give us that little vignette of how to get in?
Thank you for that invitation. The best place to find me is just starting on my website, which is Michelle with 2 L's, Tillis, Tillis, Lederman, Lederman.com. From there, you can click the book pages. My most recent book is The Connector's Advantage. And that's the one that has the BOGO offer. Just click book specials, you'll find it. And you'll see all of my books on that page. You also can get to my LinkedIn, my Instagram, my newsletter. I I send a newsletter, blog, article, whatever you want to call it, every week, Tuesdays at 8 a.m. Eastern. And it is really me on paper in terms of storytelling and tips and advice, and sometimes some videos in there. So that's the place that you can go and branch out from there.
And I know you're big on LinkedIn, and you're everywhere, right? But I like following you on LinkedIn. You're always putting out some valuable information that I can glean from just myself, just to grow in my own space. So connecting with you there is, I think, a great place as well.
And I do have a LinkedIn newsletter, so that's an easy place to follow me as well.
I keep saying I'm going to do that. That's a great way to get your voice out there. There's a lot of different ways to get your voice out there. Speaking, I mean, you have multiple books. And you're on podcasts, you understand the power of that. We all, from the election, right? The recent election, know the power of podcasting. I think that's only going to grow. Don't poo-poo it. It's not paid, but it's a really powerful way to reach your right fit people.
I would never poo-poo a podcast. I mean, I can't do them all, because I get literally multiple requests a day to be on this summit or that podcast. But the idea that you can repurpose that content and put little snippets and put it on your YouTube or put it on your Instagram, or, include it in a newsletter, make it a LinkedIn post, promote the podcast host, build and strengthen that relationship. So, that investment of a little time of an interview has a long, long tail. And you also put those things on your website. Now you've got cross-linking, which elevates you in Google. During COVID, landed a client in 24 hours from a Google search. She came into my website, filled out a form. Instead of emailing her back, I picked up the phone, called her. She signed a contract literally the next day.
That's amazing. I love it.
And when I asked her how she found me, she said Google. So all of these little things are continuing to grow your platform, your presence, and people's awareness of you.
Really, really good. Right. Spot on. Right on. I'll add one little thing to that. So many people moan and groan about, I got to do all this content pieces, right? It's just, if you love what you do, like if you love talking about what you're known for, get on other people's podcasts. If you want to start your own podcast, whatever, but there's your content. Like you said, like you never have to worry about what am I going to create. One good podcast interview is like a month's worth of great content. And that's really pretty much all I do. I mean, I'll stick some other things in there every now and then, but my inspiration generally comes from conversations like this. You've just spurred so much into my head right now that if I had the time after we get off, I could just go and create 5 posts right now, right? Just on some of the things that you and I spoke about. So if you're worried about having to continually come up with content, by getting your voice out there on podcasts, and that's not what this particular episode is about, but we just organically went there. Number one, you're getting more findable. You're getting more Googleable. Win, right? That's a huge win. You are, again, learning, you're collecting data. You're learning what people are leaning into and what you enjoy speaking about. So data collecting, that's another win. And you're creating all this content that you don't have to go out there then and try to figure out what you're going to talk about, because the host asked you and kind of guided you on what you're going to talk about. So that's another amazing thing. I'm sure that from some of your podcast pieces, that probably inspires some of the newsletters that you put out there, some of the things that you talked about, maybe unexpectedly, that you hadn't talked about.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And here's my trick with social media, because I do post almost every day. But I pre-prepare them. I literally was working on January content today. So I will, and I have a VA that helps. So, I have been writing my newsletter since 2011, maybe even earlier. So I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles that I have written over the last decade plus. So I now can have my VA or even AI go into what I've already written, my content, my voice, my words, and pull pieces. And then my VA organizes it, sends it to me. I edit, And then she puts graphics to it. And then I will have them do the physical posting each day of getting it up there, so that, I mean, I don't have time to be on, and doing it all myself. And then I manage the engagement where basic comments, they might just like for me. But, if it is more robust comments, which I love, please give me those robust comments. They put them all in a spreadsheet so I can click, click, click and go in and comment and respond as me and give more robust feedback. So I'm in there every day, engaging with the feedback that people are giving me on those posts. So please engage. Don't just, put a comment there. I love the comments. But it is a system that isn't as onerous as it might look. And that's with, international support as well as US based support, right? Because I know there's different price points and what people want to afford. But start small. I used to do a newsletter once a month, right? Actually, I think it was once a quarter, then it was once a month, then it was twice a month, and now it's weekly. And it's been weekly for several years. I mean, probably the better part of a decade. But, it was only a few years ago that I started posting on social media regularly, somewhere maybe during COVID. So understand that, you can ebb and flow.
You talked about engaging and interacting, and that's talk about levels of currency, right? Before, a like went far, a follow, a like went far. But now in the world of AI and overstimulation, the algorithms don't recognize that quite as much, or I guess value it quite as much as that engaging, interacting in the comments. So if you want to give someone a gift, right? So you saw a post, it actually gave you an idea or was something that made you smile, whatever. Don't just like it. Just take the 30 nanoseconds to write a little something in the comments area. That goes a long way for them, but it also gives you visibility for their audience. So all of a sudden, Michelle's devout followers are now, you're getting on the map a little bit within her community, just because you're interacting with her.
Yes, and I love two things that you said. One was you called it a gift, and that's exactly what I call it. Commenting and engaging with somebody, giving them feedback, saying you liked their book, you liked their talk, you liked their whatever, their post. That's a gift. So if you want to build relationship, if you want to create connection, that's a great way to add value to somebody else. So love that. And the other thing that you said is, taking that 30 nanoseconds for the comment or the share. The share is really, really powerful as well, because then you are helping spread their message even further. So, I value and I love the engagement, and there's definitely names actually I don't remember which book. I think it was the most recent book. There's people who are referenced in that book because they built a relationship with me on LinkedIn. I've never met them, but their name was so consistent in the engagement that I felt like I knew them, and that if they emailed me, I would have answered, right? It wouldn't have gone to spam. So, there's definitely relationships that I've built with people that I've never met because of that consistency of engagement.
Ooh, that's huge. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm glad you interjected that. Okay. I have one more thing I'd like to dive in just real briefly, and then we'll go to the signature question and as we wrap up. But you said something earlier that I really wanted to touch on, because we were so deep somewhere else. I didn't want to pull us out of that, but I also want to go here because you did this. You practiced this. There's proof in your process. So I want to give this to our guests as well. And essentially, somehow you knew the bigger picture in the kind of life and profession you wanted. And then you knew what you had to do to get there. I'm sure there was figuring it out along the way to a certain extent as well. But you didn't say, okay, I want this. I'm going to quit everything else and I'm going to have that. There's a process to get there. What I see, especially with speakers, I don't know why, but they don't treat speaking as you would any other business. For any other business, you have a business plan. You have, year one, quarter one, year one, quarter two. You have the plan, the systematic plan. But for speaking, people just kind of, they build it and they don't even see the full picture of where they're getting at. It's kind of like architecture, right? You can build a house by winging it. You've got some nails, some hammers, some wood, and just start building it without a plan. What are you going to wind up with? Or you can see the plan of what you want to build, and then you know what comes first, you know what comes second, you know what comes third. And I just wanted to dive into that with you, because I see so many people who will at least attempt to build this speaking career, the speaker life, and either it falls apart because they didn't have the system, or they build this monolith, right? They build this big thing and they resent it because it's not the life they actually wanted. So how did you see the picture of what you wanted? And as you evolve, that picture changes, but at least you've got to start with one and then kind of create the way for you to attain that.
So one of the things I talk about is design your ideal. And what does that ideal look like for you? Now, as I said, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. My oldest child is about to turn 19. So I literally left the finance world while pregnant.
Scary.
And I've been on my own ever since. But my vision was to be a part-time, I know that's laughable. I'm not part-time by any stretch of the imagination. But at the time I was thinking part-time mom working in the front row, the class parent, like all that stuff. And the truth is, I was not part-time, but I was the class parent every year for my kids all through grammar school. And last year I was the president of the Fencing Parents Association because my son was the captain. I knew what I wanted. I knew I loved working and I wanted to continue to work, but I also wanted to be accessible and flexible for my family. So that was the vision of the lifestyle. And I think that's an important element to it. I will confess, there was no business plan. I was getting out of finance. I didn't want to deal with any of that stuff. I used to be in M&A and look at business plans. I'm like, no. But what I did do was set annual goals. And for those that can see this, I am pulling out a pack of sticky notes. And if you can see, this is years and years of my 1-year goals.
Oh.
And it was literally what could fit on a sticky note. And it sits right here in my drawer. And this one says 2024. And so every time I open my drawer, I see exactly what I'm saying my priorities are for this year. And early on,
it's not pages and pages. It's this little square sticky note.
Don't feel overwhelmed with the feeling like you have to do a 30-page business plan. And you can. It just wasn't my way. My way was, okay, what's the next phase I want to get to in my business? And it was from, okay, I have one-off clients. I want repeat business. Then it was, I have, a couple programs. I want a library of content. And it was, I'm the only one doing the training. I want to, leverage and have some other trainers do some of my work and put them to work, and now I have 36 trainers that I put to work regularly. So it was literally just what are the focuses for this year? How many talks do I want to have this year? How much do I want my average talk fee to be? Average. I didn't say minimum, right? I said, I want X number of talks. I want to make this much money through this revenue stream. So those were the kind of things that gave me clarity of where my energy should be spent and what do I say yes to and what do I say no to. And it can be that simple.
That was so powerful. That could be the signature question, but I'm still going to ask you the signature question. That's just a doable thing, right? And we do overcomplicate. And where we overcomplicate, we paralyze. So you had the wisdom to, if that year's goals didn't fit on your sticky, it's going to have to just wait, right? What is it boiled down to? What does 2025 boil down to that you want to, at the end of that year, be able to say, okay, I accomplished that. Now let's look forward.
And by the way, number 4 on 2024 says, take care of me. So it isn't just business things on my sticky note. Sometimes it was lose weight or, connect with one of my 2 kids or, it is a life view for your year.
A life view for your year. Okay. Wow. That's a beautiful segue into our signature question, but I want to write that down. Life view for your year. What a powerful 45 minutes-ish that we've had together. Thank you for all of the wisdom that you've brought to Speak Pact. And I feel a little selfish asking you for one more little tidbit because you've given us so much. But for this, our beautiful Speak Pact audience, and the fact that you and me, Michelle, and the audience are on kind of an unspoken pact to make the greatest impact with the power of our voices as possible. What would you wish you would have known maybe in the earlier years that could have helped make the journey even better? You're at an amazing place now, but you weren't always there. And it's easy for us to compare our chapter 1 to your chapter 10. Tell us a little bit about your chapter 1. Would you have changed up anything there? And what are some tactical things that you might have done back then?
The truth is I don't tend to look back and wish I did something different, because I'm so happy with where I am that whatever tricks and turns and twists I had to make to get here, I learned something along the way. So that's kind of my philosophy of
keep
life
moving forward.
Is,
don't worry too much behind.
Moving forward, and there was a purpose and a lesson in everything, even my accounting degree. So, I don't know if I would say I would do something differently with my early years. But if I were to give one more nugget to the audience, my thought would be, don't get overwhelmed. Pick one, right? Like, you heard a lot of things and you can be like, oh, I got to do that. I got to do that. I got to do that. Don't chase the rabbit. Pick one concept, one idea that you have some energy around. Like, I didn't have energy around social media for years, so I didn't do it. But I did have energy around my writing and writing a weekly newsletter, so I did it. So pick what you have some energy around, pick one thing, one idea, and say, what is it I can do today to move that idea forward? And ask yourself that same question every day. What is one thing I can do today? Just one.
Powerful. Don't chase the rabbit. Do the one thing that you know you can move forward that day. Get accomplished, right? When you finish that thing, you feel like you've accomplished something. If you're chasing the rabbit, which is pretty impossible to catch, then you're exhausted and you really haven't accomplished anything. So just keep moving forward, basically that one step at a time.
And you will see that progress amplify itself. You will feel that momentum. You will be energized by it. And if you are not, pick something else.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, that is the perfect way to end, because I don't know what else is there, right? If you can grasp onto that, you're not going to stay still. You're not going to be paralyzed. You're not going to be overwhelmed. You are going to actually move the dial in the direction of that great, beautiful speaker life that you want. Thank you, Michelle. It's been such an honor to have been chosen to get to interview you. I know that you're in demand, and I don't take that lightly. So thank you for being with us today.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And if you want to give Michelle a flower and say your thank yous to her, then post it forward. This interview, if you found value from it, which there's no way that you couldn't have, then post it forward. You're giving gifts to everybody else who gets to see it, and to me and Michelle for being with you here today. Thank you, Speak Pact audience. Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Pact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the Speak Pact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPact.